First of all, introducing our challenger.
Out of the blue corner.
He's going to step in and he does. It's all over.
Let's bring on the boom.
This is Eternal MMA.
All right, let's kick it off here with another edition here on the Eternal Insiders Podcast. With myself, my name is Luke, and as always, I'm your host. And I'm joined today by none other than the man set to defend his title for the very first time in a co-main event slot atop an absolutely stacked Eternal 78 card in Sydney on September 8th. It's the reigning defending welterweight champion for Eternal MMA himself. Joining us all the way from Thailand, as you can clearly see there in the background, Mr. Joseph Luciano. Joey, as always, man, thank you so much for your time. You're becoming a bit of a regular, so thank you very much for joining us again. And how's things?
Yeah, mate, as you can tell, it's vibrant out here. Just, got the temple in the background and doing my thing. It's good to be back on, and it's great to hear you say, reigning champion. So I suppose I hadn't thought of it like that, and that's a good thing to hear, and I can't wait for that show in Sydney. It's going to be awesome. What a card and what a weekend for Australian MMA.
It's going to be an absolutely huge weekend for Australian MMA, man. I mean, we did it back in Perth for, the UFC we had back there in Eternal MMA, and we're doing it again in Sydney. And, of course, you are the reigning champion. You will be defending for the first time, so it's a very cool thing. Of course, you are over there in Thailand right now, not just soaking up the beautiful rays that we have there in the background, but getting a lot of training in, of course, over there at Absolute MMA in Thailand, the affiliate gym for yourself, of course, here in Absolute MMA in sunny Victoria. So how's things going over there, getting your licks in over there in Thailand, man?
Yeah, awesome, man. I've had a few of the boys come out. Sam and Samad, who have both fought on Eternal, came out for a couple of weeks, and then I got Dylan Lahari out here as well. So it's been good, man. Just cruising and getting some good training in and a lot of volume and, getting fit and really, really enjoying it. This trip's probably been one of the best ones yet for me on a training level and a personal level. So, yeah, it's been awesome, man. Awesome.
Yeah, because, you're sort of back and forth a little bit, aren't you? You're training, obviously, here at home in Victoria, but you've sort of been back over there a couple of times. What's that dynamic been like for you, this time around in terms of your training camp? Has it just been back and forth? Like, how often are you sort of making that trip?
Yeah, so, as sort of anyone that trains would know, the more time you spend with a coach, the more information you can get out of them and the better quality of training will be. So I think I've been here maybe 5 times in the last 6 months, and each time with the trainers, it just clicks more and more and getting more out of them. And I'm able, I'm used to coming here now, whereas before it'd take me two weeks to acclimatize. And if you're only coming for a month or 6 weeks, that's 2 dead weeks. Whereas now I know how to prepare to come out here, do a pre-camp camp, and then get out here, hit the ground running. And then when I get back home, I'm absolutely sprinting. So, yeah, it's fantastic, man. And the change-up's good. The mental change-up is probably one of the most valuable aspects of it, just being immersed in combat sports and, cornering 3-4 nights a week and training 6 days and just, really enjoying myself out here, man.
That's good to hear, brother. But, from a training standpoint, what's sort of the biggest thing you take from it, going over to Thailand? Can you sort of talk about it, what's sort of the biggest difference between, training here with Absolute MMA in Victoria versus sort of going over there? You got to sort of mention, Thailand, obviously well known for Muay Thai and that sort of thing. Is that the biggest thing for you, is being able to get, a completely different look, from the guys over there in Thailand with sort of the Muay Thai style?
100%. Thailand is the home of Muay Thai, and it's ingrained in the society, and it's ingrained in the coaches. Some of the stories they'll tell you about training in Bangkok and being beaten with skipping ropes and, whipped if they come home too late. It's pretty hectic. And then, I'm able to get their knowledge without getting whipped by a skipping rope, which is fantastic. So for me, the biggest thing is the volume out here. You're doing a 3-hour session in the morning, a 3-hour session in the afternoon, and then in between that, I'm doing my own S&C as well. So just being able to really increase the volume and not have to live life's little intricacies and things that I do back home. Here, I can just wake up, go to 7-Eleven, grab myself a coffee, train for 3 hours, shower, go home, eat, sleep, train, repeat, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I don't have to like be nice to people or talk to anyone or do social shit. It's cool, man. It's a little self-absorbed. I probably won't be doing this when I'm 50, right? Like, other people will need my attention, but out here I can just solely focus on Joseph Luciano and what I need to bring into that next fight. So, yeah.
I totally appreciate that, man. I mean, the power of being anonymous in an unknown place, right? You don't sort of feel like you have to be just sort of another sort of face-to-face with people you know. So it's not selfish. I totally get that. Or if it is selfish, it's totally for a good reason. So 100% appreciate that.
It is.
For sure. Do you get to, you mentioned obviously you're training like so much. I mean, you said you wake up, you eat, sleep, repeat, train, all that sort of thing. But like, do you get to sort of soak in a bit of Thailand's foreign country, beautiful country, never been there myself, but do you get to sort of, maybe on a weekend or something, get around and sort of see the sights?
Yeah, like, because for me, I've seen a lot of it and the novelty's worn off in that regard. But having the other guys come out, it's nice to take them up to Phuket town and around the island and see a smile on their face and do some of the touristy shit. It's a nice little bit of a break. But apart from that, it's just like me living out here as a normal dude, I suppose. Like, the novelty's worn off a little bit in that regard, but the novelty hasn't worn off in the training at all, that's for sure.
No, I mean, there must be some sort of comfort in that. It probably sort of feels like a bit of a second home for you there, so you're not sort of going around wide-eyed. It must be sort of, being able to sort of settle in and just enjoy that, the same way you sort of do here. There must be some real benefits for that. I do have to ask you, though, man, last time we talked, there was some promise of some T-shirts that were supposed to be coming out that I haven't seen any sight of. What's going on with that? I don't know if anyone remembers that podcast where we had don't be a not so smart person. What's going on with those T-shirts? We never got those. I didn't see them.
There's actual video evidence, receipts of that too, so I can't even deny it. There is T-shirts currently in the works. They're not the dumb cunt T-shirts.
Okay.
They're going to be a very select, very, very select run that I'm going to do, and I promise I'll get you one, but they'll only be for a few people because that's a bit of a laugh, and
of course,
I'm sure I'll say some outrageous shit again on a mic, but I'm trying to be a good person, I suppose. But I've got some guerrilla energy ones coming out, which will be good, and they're a bit more polite, and people might actually buy them. Whereas the dumb cunt ones, I think, I can't give it to my grandma, can I?
Well, I mean, depending on how down your grandma is with that kind of thing, I mean, who knows? You know what I mean?
Pretty down actually, but yeah, it might. Her walking around with it might raise a few eyebrows, I think.
No, that's fair enough, man. Select few people, I can totally understand that. But looking forward to the gorilla shirts there as well. So if we can see some Joey Luciano merchandise coming out, we'll always be all over it. So
yeah, for sure.
Watch this space on that one. Now, I did want to ask you as well, last time we did talk, after your title win, you told us that you were pretty much back in the gym on the Monday, helping out with some coaching, and then for yourself, you were straight back in there on the Tuesday, getting your own reps in back in the gym. Is that just something that you'll always be naturally inclined to do if you come out of a fight, you're still in shape? Or is this sort of a little bit of a case of there's a big target on our back now in the form of a shiny welterweight strap, and you've just got to be sharp and ready to go at all times?
I think lifestyle-wise, mate, like I'll be 80 years old and I'll still be getting back into the gym.
Love it.
Like it's something I love and it's a lifestyle. And if I don't get back into the gym, I feel like a piece of shit. Like, this is my job too, man. Like, so yeah, provided I'm not banged up, I'll always get into the gym. If my leg's fucked, I'll do some bicep curls. If my biceps fucked, I'll do some leg presses. If I can't do striking, I'll do some jiu-jitsu, et cetera, right? I really enjoy it. And deep inside of me, I have like some sort of need to exert myself physically. Otherwise, I get really annoying and I piss people off. So if I don't do that, my life will be pretty hectic. So it's just a requirement of mine,
You're doing it for everyone else. You're a man of the people, man.
Correct.
100%. Now, what actually also did come out of that when you did win that belt against Caleb Rideout to get yourself that welterweight strap and set yourself up for your first title defense, some more good news in terms of the evolution of your career came out of that not long after announcing that you'd signed with Rival Sports Management. Can you talk a little bit about how that sort of influenced your career a little bit now? Rival Sports Management, of course, home to guys like Robert Whittaker, Jimmy Crute, former Eternal flyweight champion Stephen Erceg. also a training partner of yourself, Lisa Curiatu, who just made her successful debut for one championship as well. So what was that sort of like in terms of making the next step in your professional career as a martial artist?
I think whatever a fighter can put in place to take stress off of themselves outside of fighting is beneficial. And getting to the stage where I'm at now, it's like the better task delegation I can have, the more efficient I'm going to become. And Rival's a part of that, right? And management's a part of that. So, whatever they can do for me so that I just train, that's brilliant. And, I'm getting to the pointy stage of the career where, I'm looking at the big picture now, and if they can assist me on the way with that, that's perfect. And that's something I need. So I'm very lucky to have, them around and people like that in my life that are steering me in a correct direction. And, it's a mutual beneficial agreement, right? Like the more cash and the more exposure I make, the more they get paid. So it's pretty organic in that regard. And yeah, it's going to be good. And hopefully it progresses as my career progresses too.
No, and speaking of career progression, obviously we've got the matchup for Eternal 78, and we'll talk about Matt Vaile and that matchup in a second. But as we mentioned, Eternal 78 on the eve of UFC 293. We don't have a main event for UFC 293, but we do have a teammate of yours in former Eternal MMA featherweight champion Jack Jenkins rolling in on that card. So Absolute MMA represent on two fronts, mind you. So yourself for Eternal MMA in a co-main event slot, Jack Jenkins holding it down in the UFC the very next day. Must be a very cool thing for you guys to be able to go in there and put it on for two shows, both locally and internationally, representing Absolute MMA and all the guys there. Must be a very cool thing for you guys.
Yeah, man, that's special. Like, it's awesome for me to be able to defend my belt in Sydney. That's fantastic. And then we've got Jack, who's making waves in the UFC on a UFC card in Sydney. It's not as good as being in Melbourne, right? But it's the next best thing for sure.
Close.
So
second.
I think anytime you get to showcase your skills in front of basically a home crowd, it's fucking awesome. And, it's brilliant that Eternal is able to put it on the eve of the UFC and have the UFC in Sydney. And it's just eyes on the sport and eyes on us. And, what a stage to perform on. And it's fantastic, man.
Huge spot all around. I mean, Eternal MMA making their first trip to Sydney is very cool. So, Eternal MMA doing big things all around the country. You're right. It's not quite Melbourne. I mean, big things down here in Melbourne, Victorian man myself. So we'd love to see it sort of down here a little bit more. But I mean, getting it in Sydney the night before UFC 293, Jack Jenkins and Joseph Luciano going in there and putting it on for Absolute MMA. Very, very cool thing. Now we have you in the co-main event slot. We'll talk a little bit about this matchup. We got Matt Vaile as the opponent, facing you in the cage at Eternal 78. Can you tell us a little bit about when you first found out this matchup was a possibility? How did it come about in terms of you two facing each other for that card in Sydney?
Obviously, Matt's sort of been at the top end of the echelon in Oz or Australia and New Zealand for a very long time. So someone I've had my eye on for a while, and, he's got a great record and he's a fantastic opponent. He's a quality opponent. He comes from a great gym out at Core MMA in New Zealand. And, from the amateur scene, with me fighting internationally with IMAF, Core has had guys on that from New Zealand. So, it's a small world in this part of the world down here. And, of course, if someone's at the top, you're going to cross paths with them. So fantastic match, and what an exciting fight. And I can't wait. I cannot wait to display the skills. So it's going to be fantastic.
No, I mean, on paper, man, I mean, this is a very exciting matchup. I mean, we can say that about a lot of fights, but I mean, this is truly, like, in terms of, stacking a card for Eternal 78 the way we are, and there's still more fights to come on that, but to have you guys at the sort of the top of the bill there, very, very cool. Of course, yourself, you're on a 7-fight winning streak. 6 of those wins you've had in that 7-fight win streak are all finishes. You guys are both finishers. Of course, yourself, you've got 5 sub-wins on your record. Matt, he's a finisher in his own right with 8 KOs or TKOs on his record. You're both sort of sitting about that 75% finish record for your professional records that you do have at the moment. So in terms of what fans can sort of expect, I mean, a couple of finishes going in there for the welterweight championship at that sort of point in your career, you're sort of getting up, getting closer and closer to your prime of your career. I mean, just from a fan perspective, this is a very cool fight.
Yeah, man, that's epic when you put it like that, and the stats on that alone are pretty exciting. yeah, fuck that. That's cool, man. The finish rate is very high.
It's sort of sitting around that. I mean, I think if you wanted to be very technical, I think you were 74% and I think he's about 76%. So let's call it a dead even 75% for both of you on aggregate there. Both finishes, we'll say. So when you look at that matchup, man, like a guy like Matt Vaile, yourself, you're the man in this country at the moment in the welterweight division. What do you make of this in terms of an on-paper matchup? What do you think is sort of, what can fans expect when you two guys get in the cage against each other, do you think?
I think that's pretty clear. There's going to be a finish. There's 5 rounds to do it in, and prepping for these 5 rounds is fantastic because there's so much more time to get a finish too. Like a 3-rounder, if someone fucks around, they can kind of draw it out. But that 25 minutes, that's a fucking absolute grind. And the opportunities just present themselves so much more from a statistical standpoint. So I can't wait for that. And it's going to be a brilliant fight.
I mean, it's so far out, man. So, I mean, there's so much time for you to kind of, think about, what you're sort of going to do in there. But is there a sort of a part of you at the moment that sees a particular route to victory? Do you get a chance to sort of study him as an opponent at this stage? We know you're a finisher in terms of your subs. We know what he sort of does on the feet and that sort of thing. Do you just sort of want to let the fight come the way it is? Or is this sort of a bit too far away for you to sort of worry about now? We'll see what happens September 8th in Sydney.
I think anytime you're presented with an opponent, well, I know at least from our team, we will dissect and analyze what they do best, what they don't do best. So that's something I'm always going to look into. But this is MMA. There's been great wrestlers that have knocked out great strikers. There's been great strikers that have knocked out, that have submitted great jiu-jitsu guys. So you've got to take it as it comes. You've got to feel the guy's energy in there and see where they're going to break, where they're going to push back. So I never say, hey, this is what's going to happen. I'll give you a funny one-liner if you press me for it. I'll tell you I'm going to do a spinning wheel kick, jumping twister. But you've got to feel it. You've got to feel the guy's energy. And, you can check out positions they're weak in, they're strong in, and look to exploit them. But once you feel someone's energy and you feel their strengths and their weaknesses, you can get a good read of a person. And that's where I'll look for the finish in that regard. That might be, guys, he's chewing on my right hand. I'm going to absolutely belt him with it and KO him, or chopping his leg, or he gives his back. It's something I go by feel and touch. So I suppose from a cerebral standpoint, it's the brain connection to my body. Once I feel someone, that I'll know what's up for sure.
For sure. I mean, as we said, so much there to look forward to in terms of, a couple of finishes going in there against each other. And from that cerebral standpoint, I mean, probably no better place in mind for yourself than being able to train at no less than 2 Absolute MMA gyms in preparation for this fight. So a lot of good heads are sort of inside those gyms. So in your mind, I'm sure you're going there and getting the job done with that big spinning, flying wheel kick. If that happens, I want to see that printed on a T-shirt. We've got to get that in line. We've got to get a spinning kick of yourself, a little bit of a silhouette there or something like that. I'd like to get in on that. So let's look forward to that Eternal 78 card. I'm very excited. I've got one last one for you, man, just before you go. Last time we did have you on the pod, you said that being an Eternal MMA champion pretty much makes you the man in your division in the country. Of course, that's very true. You've mentioned that, former champions have gone on to do, big things internationally. Correct. There's no better sort of platform, for champions to sort of springboard their career and go on to, bigger opportunities, abroad and that sort of thing too. And, that's sort of holding true for yourself as well. And you did say that, while you are looking at international opportunities down the line, you want to stay active, you want to defend your belt, you want to sort of do whatever it takes. With this fight coming up for Eternal 78, big platform, huge, the night before UFC 293.
Correct.
In your mind, is this the perfect platform for you to continue on the trajectory that you had in your mind to go to that next phase in your career?
I think that is astonishingly clear. You've got the UFC in town. You're the biggest show in the country, Eternal. There's going to be eyes on you. What a platform to perform in, and what a springboard to jump off. Eternal has the record speaks for itself. Look at Della, look at Jenkins, Casey. It's just so clear in this country that Eternal is that springboard and that platform. And, I implore people to actually realize that. And, I know it. I think everyone does. So it's going to be fantastic that I've got this opportunity. This game is like a bit of chance, a bit of luck, and a lot of skill and heart, right? And the stars have aligned timing-wise for this, so I'm going to grab the opportunity by both balls and twist for sure.
Let's go by both balls and twists. I retract my statement about the spinning wheel kick t-shirt. We need that on a t-shirt just as a final sign-off, so let's go with that one. But absolutely hit the nail on the head there, man. Eternal MMA, biggest platform in Australia to do your thing. Yeah, but on the flip side of that, we're lucky to have you representing us as the welterweight champion for Eternal MMA, so we can't wait to see you go out there and put it on against Matt Vaile on September 8th in Sydney, underneath that UFC 293 card before your teammate Jack Jenkins goes out there the next day and puts it on in the UFC. Just as a very quick one, will you get a chance to sort of go to that fight the next day at all?
I definitely will be going to that fight for sure. It would be cool to obviously follow Jack around on all his adventures, but I got shit to do too. So when he fights in our backyard, it's fantastic to be able to support him.
Now, we've got to take care of business first, so it will be Joseph Luciano defending his welterweight title against Matt Vaile on September 8th, Eternal MMA, making its debut in Sydney. Going to be an absolute cracking card. Still more fights to come on that one. If you're not attending there in person, you can, of course, catch that live and exclusive for the main card on UFC Fight Pass. I can't wait. Joey's ready to go over there in sunny Thailand. He'll be back here getting more of his licks in, setting himself up for that huge spot. So, Joey, as always, man, thank you very much for your time here on the show. All the best for September, man, and we'll see you there.
My pleasure, mate. I'll catch you there.
That's your real brother. Thank you.